As the debates continue to rage around the union dispute and the options available to all parties, this broadcast by Ninas is directed at the minorities, the so-called minorities of the North, the West, and the East. The broadcast will be in a series of 3 parts. And in this first part, we'll be addressing the minorities of the North, the Middle Belt. And the purpose of the broadcast is to situate their peculiar situation in the wider, battlefield we are all caught in. Because there is this, the decolonization at the time the British were leaving. It was a matter of, if it could be called decolonization. The situation of the minorities, both of the North and the South, and to be more specific, the Middle Belt, which is the minorities of the North, the minorities of the Western region of 1960, the minorities of the Eastern region of 1960. Those 3 regions were the regions that were now being, federated by the departing British. And ahead of the independence, they all had reasons to demand a separation from the majority national groups, nationalities, because those regions were built around those majority nationality groups. In the Western region, it was the Yoruba. In the Eastern region, it was the Igbo. In the Northern region, it was basically the Fulani and the pretense of having the Hausa as part. So you hear such nonsense as Hausa Fulani. But together, they now had to lord it over the Tiv, the Joko, the Doma, the Berom, the Gala, all of those in the territory we call the Middle Belt now. And what was it that was done? Those 3 regions were practically handed by the British over to those majority national groups. But the minority groups, for reasons that were, on each occasion personal or peculiar to them, had cause to go to, seek that extrication. And such was the campaign for such extrication from the control of the majority tribes, the majority national groups, that a commission was set up. You hear about Willing's Commission that was set up to look into, inquire into the fears of the minorities in each of these places. The reason we're making this broadcast is to bring matters up to date, because we are now finally in the threshold of resolving what is left in that process of decolonization that didn't get completed as far as those minorities were concerned. Yes, the British left, but they left those minorities in the belly of those majority national groups in these 3 blocks, waiting for occasions of mischief to pretend that they have removed them. Of course, we saw what happened in 1963, where in an attempt to undo Awolowo, whom they had put in prison, the Midwest was the minorities of the Western region, got carved out as Midwestern region. Meanwhile, they had gone to Willing's Commission to ask for that. It wasn't given to them. Then on the eve of the declaration of the Biafra in 1967, just 3 days before the 30th of May, 1967, when Eastern region declared itself the Republic of Biafra, they went back to what they didn't do, what they didn't concede to, what they didn't offer in Willing's Commission, to then declare, to remove the minorities of the East into 2 separate states, River State and Southeastern State, in an attempt to break the eastern region and prevent it from declaring itself Biafra in the days that followed. And so it is because we hear from all kinds of places, people who are supposed to know, recommending a return to, as a part of their own contribution to this restructuring debate. They say, oh, let's go back to 1960 Constitution. Some say, oh, let's go back to 1963 Constitution. 1963, for the minorities of the North and the minorities of the South, will not, does not solve the problem that had to be solved. If you are saying you want to go back to 1960 or 1963, you are asking the minorities to go back to the belly of those majority groups. So you are not discussing their own situation. You are discussing only your own situation. And for the people who are talking about whose turn it is to be president and whose turn is not, in all the things they have been doing since independence, they don't seem to reckon that these minorities are also human beings, are also equal members of the union. Their numbers may not be, that big, but unfortunately for Nigeria today, the mainstay of Nigeria's economy is coming from one of those minorities. The oil and gas that Nigeria sells 3 million barrels of, every day, happens to come from minorities of the East, whom you now call Niger Delta or South, whatever you choose to call them. But that's the purpose of this broadcast, is to say it loud and clear that it is not a return to 1963 Constitution or 1960 Constitution that will solve the problem as far as they are concerned. It may solve for some other people who want to take back what Abuja, what the federal government of Nigeria, what the illicit federal government of Nigeria has taken from them. But if it comes back to you in a setting that doesn't return it to the actual people on ground from whom it was taken and who have been fighting ceaselessly since then, of course, he hasn't solved the problem. But in particular, the middle belt, the question of Sharia that has arisen again. We remember that Joseph Tucker, who later with his colleagues formed the Middle Belt Congress, just to say that these people, we are different from the balance of the North, the Caliphate North, precisely. Ahmadu Bello wanted Sharia, but the minorities of the North were Christians and are still Christians. Because of that, they wanted to be separated from that North of Ahmadu Bello that will go with Sharia. And it became an issue, it became their central issue. Say, look, if we have to, if the northern region has to, if the northern region is allowed to adopt Sharia like Ahmadu Bello wanted, then the middle belt has to be separated from that, not because they're Christians. How did Willings Commission settle it? Willings Commission removed Sharia from the table and brought what they call penal code, so that the minorities of the middle of the North, the middle belt, who are Christians, can function, freely, unmolested. And so it became a fundamental agreement, a fundamental term of union that Sharia should not feature, especially in that part. And if it is so for that part, you can imagine the rest of the country, how it will fit in that in a secular federation we thought we were building, that some people brought Sharia. So from the time in year 2000 that these 12 contiguous states of the far north, imposed Sharia simultaneously in their territories, contiguous, simultaneous, pay attention, contiguous, simultaneous. It means they made up their mind to go back to what Ahmadu Bello wanted. And from that point on, I can tell you that the basis of being in union with the balance of the middle belt, and by extension the rest of the country, have been truncated by them. And so they have seceded from the secular union we were building. And so this discussion today on what went wrong with the union agreement, what went wrong with the federation we're trying to build, the secular union we're trying to build, the middle belt has to pay more attention so that they can extricate themselves from the union of death that Nigeria has become for them on account of the reintroduction. It is the reintroduction of that Sharia that has now brought these killings we see, because you can see it's all a jihad over again. The jihad by which Uthman Danfodio and co. landed in the Sokoto territory that we have now in 1804, is just being resumed. And we see what the descendants of that Uthman Danfodio and the Ahmadu Bello that came later, we can see what they are doing, pretending to be federal government of Nigeria in a federation that collapsed since 1966. And so we're inviting the minorities of the North, we're inviting the Middle Belt, who have been described even by Ahmadu Bello in his 1960 mission statement as minorities of the North, whom he further described as willing tools that will be used to deal with the South. We saw what happened in the quarrel with Eastern region that became Biafra and all of it. But today we are all in trouble. We invite the Middle Belt to come more openly for their own sake, because there's an extermination campaign going on. If anybody doesn't wake up in time, he will be wiped out. Those who have been overrun, their territories have been taken, they're not going to take it back. They're not going to bring it back by any means. Let us work, let us stand up and know that our lives are at stake. Our assets have been taken, and those who took the assets by the instrumentality of the constitution they imposed are now in the mission of exterminating those who will lay claim tomorrow. But when we're ahead of them now in the alliance we have that can take down that constitution and free everybody from that bondage, let us make it happen.